is NDTV. And you're watching NDTV Prime. In association with Micromax. Nothing like anything.
I'm Shekhar Gupta and I'm so thrilled to welcome you to the inaugural edition of our Off the Cuff, or OTC as we call it, in front of a stellar audience. And who do we have as our guest but one of the most inspirational global Indian stars, Nikesh Arora.
Thank you, Shekhar.
Nikesh, wonderful to have you on OTC. And what better way to start a new show than to have you here? First of all, than to have somebody much younger than me here.
That's not hard right now, Shekhar, in the startup scene.
So tell me this question. What is it that you see in an entrepreneur before offering him or her someone else's money?
As you know, we get a lot of people who come to us asking us to get funded. We're late stage investors. We don't invest early. We're not smart enough to figure out if somebody's fledgling idea is going to work. We usually look for traction. We look for people to get to a certain scale to believe that this is going to actually become big in the long term. So looking at those companies, the first thing we want to see is, do they have a large enough market opportunity ahead of them? Somebody wants to change the face of transportation in the country. Somebody wants to change the face of hospitality in the country. Somebody wants to change the face of commerce the way it's done in the country. Those are big opportunities. So even if you get a small part of that market, it usually ends up being a sizable share or a sizable business. Then the question is, what are you doing that differentiates you from everybody else? And how many other people out there trying to chase the same opportunity. But last but not the least, and perhaps most importantly, it boils down to the individuals. Who are these people who have this passion, this desire to go ahead and change the world and build something from scratch and make it very, very big? Because as you know, in any entrepreneurial venture, you have to have tremendous amounts of tenacity. You have to have confidence when people kick you down. You have to have humility when people give you feedback to be able to listen to it, get up and adapt. So we are looking for really smart people who have the passion and the tenacity to last the distance that is required to create amazing, great companies.
When we had our last conversation on Walk the Talk on NDTV 5 years ago, I had brought back a reference to you. That's about the Google founders saying they were impressed with your raw smarts when they met you. And you had described the concept of raw smarts to me. So can you describe that again to all these people? And do you also look for the same quality among entrepreneurs?
Yeah, look, I think what's fascinating is as we get older, I have an 18-year-old daughter, I have a 7-month-old son, we hire a lot of people. We hire a lot of young people, and people are getting smarter and smarter. The next generation is going to be smarter than us, and so on. So when you sit across from them, you're trying to evaluate them to see, how do you decide which person is going to make it and which person is not going to make it as much as the other one? Very often, we look for people to see, do they have the passion? So in my past life, I've hired the world knitting champion. I've hired a Olympic ice skating gold medalist. I've hired a rowing champion of the British rowing team. And sit there and say, well, what have these people got to do with Google? What have these people got to do with business? But actually what's compelling and what's telling is that these people have made tremendous amounts of sacrifices in life. You don't become a gold medalist without saying, I'm not going to go out with my friends. I'm not going to go drink. I'm not going to stay up late because I have to get up in the morning, 5 o'clock, and go rowing. Because if I don't go out rowing, I'm not going to make the team. I'm not going to win the Olympic gold medal. So a lot of people have shown discipline in their life and passion to be able to pursue their dreams. So that to us is very important. Couple that with cognitive ability, people who are smart. So if you have the passion and you are smart, then you're going to get somebody who is going to work really hard and is going to be smart. The very simple question you ask yourself is, if I get stuck in an airport with this person, can I handle missing my flight and hanging out with this person for those extra 2 hours? And sometimes there are some people who we're talking about, of course nobody here, but you sometimes realize, I don't want to get stuck with this person for 2 hours. This person is going to not be the person I want to hang out with. So that's more a congeniality test as opposed to a raw smart stuff.
Nikesh, your own move from Google. Why the choice again to challenge yourself and do something new and frankly do something unrelated?
Well, Shekhar, you and I have talked about this in the past. I left India 26 years ago. And when I left with 2 suitcases and a few $100s for my father. And I had the opportunity to work in amazing places over my life. But usually when you get into a certain career, if you haven't done your own startup, you can kind of start predicting your trajectory. You can say, okay, I know what my life is going to look like 5 years from now, what my life is going to look like 10 years from now. And when you feel comfortable that you've mastered it, you've got it figured out, you could do this for a very long time, it's time to move. So we have one life. I was very happy in my job at Google. I worked there for 10 years. I'd had the privilege of working with some amazing people, taking the revenue of that company from about $3 billion to 65, and 20,000 people who worked with me. And I said, now I can predict my life. I'm going to be doing this for a very long time because Google is going to survive for a very long time and all these smart people are going to be there. But that's too predictable. So when Masayoshi Son and I ended up having a conversation, and we spent many months debating this, and eventually I decided to start working with him. I went back to partly being an entrepreneur with nobody working for me, and it's kind of a half a mandate to go do some investing. In the last 18 months have been good to me with him. So now I have, I support him in everything we do. I help him run about 17 different companies that we own. And that keeps me very intellectually stimulated. But also it allows me to get back sort of into the guts of different businesses. Working with 7 of our really good Indian entrepreneurs, working with a Korean entrepreneur, a few Japanese entrepreneurs, a few in the US. So it keeps me stimulated and excited. And it forces me to try and reinvent myself when there was no need to reinvent myself. So that's fun.
Now we have some interesting people in the audience, but Nikesh, a debate that I'm sure you face all the time. What is new economy? What is old economy? What is e-commerce? What is old-fashioned manufacturing? So I have right here with me in the front row, Mr. Munjal, who is the Dada of Indian manufacturing of Hero. Pavan, you have a question for Nikesh?
So what are you intending to do in our space?
I don't think we're going to be doing much in your space, Pawan. As you and I have debated in the past, I don't actually see this distinction of the old economy and the new economy. I think if you look around, everybody in this room or in this audience has at least one phone and I'm pretty sure some people have more than one phone on them. And if you look at the computing power of the phone that you have, that phone today is 100 times more powerful than the PC I learned programming on in ITBHU 25 years ago. Right? So we're all carrying so much computing power on our person. Today we all take pictures with impunity. We watch videos on our phones. So we're all effectively carrying a tremendous amounts of information processing power, communication power in our hands. Now that manifests itself in a new set of behaviors, right? Today, even you try and buy something, and the guy, even in India, guy says, "Don't worry, sir, I'll send you pictures on WhatsApp. मैं आपको WhatsApp पे photo लेके आपको भेज देता हूँ. आप उसमें देख लीजिए, you choose what you want, and you can buy what you want." So suddenly, you're conducting commerce even with traditional merchants by using technology and telephones. So I think over time, our societal behaviors are going to be way more technologically enabled. People are going to transact way much more using these devices. And as Pavan has already said, we're already selling motorcycles online through Snapdeal, thanks to a partnership with his business. And I'm hoping in the long term what's going to happen is the cost of distribution, the cost of sale will go down. So efficiencies will be created. Some will accrue to people like Pavan, who's doing the manufacturing. Some will accrue to the people who are the new merchants of the future. So I think we will see this gradual shift towards an evolution where these newer companies are going to start getting engaged in commerce, in hospitality, in transportation. In some cases, they will disrupt existing businesses. In some cases, existing businesses will adapt to include them. In some cases, existing businesses will adapt to compete with them.
So if you say there is no new economy, no old economy, is one now the marketplace and the other the supplier and consumer?
No, but let's elaborate on that. The largest retailer in India is somewhere between $6 to $10 billion, roughly. The largest retailer in the United States is $500 billion. The largest online retailer in China is $400 billion, it's Alibaba. In India, the 3 e-tailers, roughly between the 3, are now delivering goods to people's homes between 15 to 18 billion dollars. 18 billion dollars of products are being delivered to people's homes. 18 billion is getting to your house, which is way bigger than any single retailer in the country. If you think about the convenience, in 10 years from now, it is probable that $100 billion to $150 billion of commerce will be conducted by going online. And that will be larger than any retailer in India in 10 years from now. Now, is that the new economy, or is that the shape of commerce in India 10 years from now? I believe that's the shape of commerce in India 10 years from now. So if that's going to happen, then the question is, which of the 3 big players or 4 big players today are going to survive? That's a whole different conversation of valuation, funding, and survival. But the consumer trend is going to be there, and there is no escaping it, and there is no bricks and mortar retailer who can compete on a pure bricks and mortar basis with this phenomenon.
हमारी दुनिया दिखती गोल है, घूमती गोल है, पर गोल नहीं है ये दुनिया। गेम्स हो या म्यूजिक हो, ड्रामा हो या डांस हो, हीरोइन का बाप हो या हीरो की माँ, गेम्स, मूवीज और म्यूजिक के 71,21,302 मिनट, ये सब फिट होता है एक छोटी सी दुनिया में।
Music, movies and games only on Airtel, the smartphone network. That help you live smart.
Get ready for a tech show where we take you up close with the latest in technology, show you how stuff works and what you can or should do when it doesn't, the questions and the solutions, what works for you and what doesn't, before you buy and after. Your guide to a fast-changing world. Reliance Digital presents Go Digital today at 4 p.m. on NDTV Prime.
Presented by Reliance Digital. Technology at your service.
Markets are plunging. Does it make sense for you to invest in this mayhem? Or is it a free fall? But can it fatten your wallet? Do dark days for home builders mean dream homes for you? Finally, a show that decodes big business headlines for your savings.
Let's Talk Money, Monday afternoon at 12:30 on NDTV Profit.
Your money, your show.
Let's Talk Money. Presented by MSC, Investor Protection Fund Trust.
20 contenders, a series of grueling challenges, a spectrum of emotions. Oh, tear for tear, joy for joy, mile for mile. Every mile will be a step closer to the ultimate grand prize.
This band goes with me and the jazz comes along with it.
Chill. But I should relax.
Do it yourself.
This is Jazz It Up on NDTV Prime.
Every Wednesday at 8:30 p.m.
Jazz It Up, brought to you by Smartphone Ho तो सिर्फ एयरटेल लो.
Welcome back to OTC or Off the Cuff, our new show, and we are in conversation with Nikesh Arora. So Nikesh, we resume our conversation, and I said I have two distinguished civil servants. One of them is right here, Amitabh Kant, who has the biggest vested interest in two things where you are crucially involved. One is Make in India, and nowadays there is Startup India. Is something you want to say to him before he comes in?
The two things which I've said to him before, and one relates to Make in India, the other relates to Startup India. As many people in the room are aware, it's really sometimes hard to do business in India. And startup has this notion of iterate, fail, stand up, start again. Now it's very hard to fail in India, because if you actually start a company and you go forward and you fail, the process involved in shutting a company down, going through the process, is more cumbersome than actually starting a company. So, you're not even allowed to fail gracefully. So part of the request has been, make it easier for entrepreneurs to step up, start companies, ease their life, so they can actually go through the processes much faster, so they can focus on creating a real business as opposed to get caught up in all the paperwork and the red tape. And the second thing, I think, as it relates to Make in India, which I think efforts are already underway, is it's important to create the right incentives for people to move manufacturing to India. Because if you look at what's happened to the United States, right? The United States over time has become a huge marketing machine. It's an amazing country. They bring stuff in, they are able to market it, package it, but a lot of the manufacturing has actually shifted overseas. And over time, what has happened, you've seen the resurgence of China, the establishment of Korea. It used to be Japan in the world of manufacturing, not as much the United States. And actually there are now efforts underway to try and bring manufacturing back to the United States, because once you move manufacturing away, it's a matter of time where R&D and innovation starts to move, because if you're not in touch with where the manufacturing is, it's very hard to innovate. So I think creating the right incentives to bring back manufacturing, which probably will be a 10 to 20 year process in terms of bringing it fully back, but we have to start the first steps.
Amitabh, you want to say something? You have the microphone.
I entirely agree with Nikesh that we've made India a very complex and a complicated country. We need to make it the simplest, easiest place to do business in. But I think the new bankruptcy law will address some of the things that you mentioned about in terms of easy exit. But I wanted to ask you that what do you look at in terms of before you invest in new startups? What are the three key things that you do that? And what is the next startup you're going to invest in?
Question that Amitabh asked you.
To answer his question in terms of what we look for, in the Indian context, we're looking for young entrepreneurs or slightly older entrepreneurs like yourself who have a big idea. And the idea has to be big enough that if you play that movie 10, 15, 20 years out, you actually think there's going to be substantial change and substantial benefit to the country and everything that's happening. So that's kind of what we look for. If you couple that with what is it that they're trying to do in that space, the proposition, the idea, the product, and last but not the least, and perhaps the most important part, is actually the person themselves. Do they have the tenacity? Do they have the humility? Do they have the passion? And perhaps the ability to bring people together to make that idea a reality.
My name is Veena Kohli and I'm the CEO of Vanguard Diagnostics. That is a startup manufacturing company in the healthcare sector. And I worked with Ranbaxy for a very long time and have been a part of manufacturing in India. And what, according to you, could be some of the most important incentives that the government of India should offer to the startup manufacturing companies in order to help them outsmart the Chinese manufacturing?
If you think about the manufacturing challenge that we have in front of us, there are countries out there which have been doing it for a long time and hence have developed scale and economies of scale. So it is fundamentally much easier for companies to go get it manufactured elsewhere and bring it into the country because there is scale elsewhere, and this problem is global. The problem is global. It's the same problem in America, same problem in every part of Asia, because China has established this ability to produce things at a very low cost, and over time their quality has started to match up. So if we want to give Indian manufacturers the opportunity to get to the same point, we have to give them some time and some incentives and some concessions for them to be able to catch up with what is the global scale of manufacturing. Not too long, so you don't want to get complacent and say, I have all these benefits and I have all these incentives and I have all these crutches so I can stand on these crutches, but just about enough to create that opportunity and that runway for Indian manufacturing to be able to at least compete with the global scale that has been established elsewhere.
My name is Anil Khetan. Nikesh, I just wanted to ask you a question, like the companies you own in, India, South Korea, Japan. What's your style of management in each of these countries?
That's a tough question. So I spent 24 years of my life in a command and control type structure where you run the company, these people work for you, you tell them what to do, they give you the illusion that they're doing what you told them to do, right? But some people do it, some people don't. Now that in the new garb in the last 16 months, one has been an investor, it's very clear that you actually want to hire really smart, you want to actually invest in companies with really smart entrepreneurs who have their own will, their own confidence, and their own desire to execute. So the role is more of a mentorship and advisory role, where you actually sit down with the entrepreneur, help them see both sides of the story, help brainstorm with them, but in the end, the decision is theirs. Now, we don't get involved in the decision that the entrepreneurs take, and hopefully we don't enter into a crisis situation where we have to step in and work with them, because that usually means you have to work hard to try and get the company back into shape. And usually the companies where you have to work the hardest is where you make the least amount of money. The best company for us is a smart entrepreneur who does really well. We invest money in the company, we give them some advice, they do really well, they go public, and we get our money. The worst is when you have to go do a workout and you barely get your money back. So that's the style and that's the hope.
So Nikesh, tell us something about some of your entrepreneurs that you've trusted in India, and tell us some fun stories about them, because they're all rock stars now. I think some of them are here. Start with Ritesh. I don't know if he's here yet, but start with Ritesh.
He has the vision of trying to change the hospitality industry in the country, and already he's reached a point where he has more rooms under management than the Taj group of hotels, and that's in a span of 24 months. He's been able to get there, and he's growing at 50% or more year over year. So interesting. We'll see how that pans out, but we think it's a sustainable model for the long term. If you look at what Kunal Bahl and Rohit Bansal are doing, as I said, they started a business 7 or 8 years ago. They've pivoted multiple times. They're now, I think, in the top 3 e-commerce businesses in the country, and hopefully they will be able to sustain that lead as well as build a real business in the next 8 to 10 years. If you take what Bhavish and Ankit have done with Ola, they've done a phenomenal job. I think when we invested in them, they were not in as many cities. In the last 18 months, the number of rides on a daily basis on Ola has gone up by 18 times. So 18 times more people are taking Olas in the country than there were 18 months ago. As we see these experiences, as we see the next generation start availing of these services, they're actually going to create real businesses in the long term.
Salt to it, man. And can I get some price with that? And why only 3? There should have been a 4th idiot, huh? And I wish he wasn't this slow, man. He's like 16 kbps, always buffering. And it should have had frills, no? And 2 inches shorter. This car should totally have a sunroof, man. And can someone please do something about that smile?
and with 4G and 3GB DDR3 RAM and FHD screen and a marathon battery and much more. Micromax Canvas 5, the phone for the end generation. And it should have a purple loop and Wi-Fi.
Groha and NDTV are leaders in their own, industries, and that's when leaders get together, then you see a product like this. And Groha has been #1 brand in the world, and that's also happened because there's a whole fraternity which is endorsing us, and this is our way of giving back to the fraternity that, here we are, and here is a platform to showcase your work. The platform that Groha and NDTV has created together, we should take it to the world.
आपकी संपत्ति बन सकती है आपके सपनों का आधार। BOI लोन अगेंस्ट प्रॉपर्टी, सबसे कम ब्याज दर और सबसे लंबी अवधि के साथ। बैंक ऑफ इंडिया, रिश्तों की जमा पूंजी। वही होटल, वही रूम, लेकिन 2 different prices. Why pay more? Find your ideal hotel on Trivago. Because Trivago compares more than 150 websites, you can be sure to find your ideal hotel for the best price. Hotel? Trivago. Mercedes-Benz presents The Great Overland Adventure every Tuesday at 8:30 p.m. on NDTV Prime. Presented by Mercedes-Benz GLA, always restless. Magazine partner Evo and AutoX.
It's clean, it's green, and they're still mean machines. You gotta see it to believe it. If you have the mojo for mobiles and a passion for environment, come hang out with a hero at the 2016 Auto Expo. Green manufacturing, clean fuels, and the most environment-friendly hero in the world. What more could you ask for? Let's go Hara, let's go hero. Let's hang out, guys. Farmer suicides, human trafficking, population, pollution. These are the things that most of us complain about. But there are some people that actually want to change the world that we live in. These people, they are the real deal.
NDTV Prime presents The Real Deal, coming soon.
This is NDTV. And you're watching NDTV Prime. In association with Micromax. Nothing like anything.
Welcome back to OTC or Off the Cuff, our new show, and we are in conversation with Nikesh Arora.
Long term.
So I think there's a question from the back.
So what kind of returns do you look at post-dividend, post-tax in dollar terms to your fund in Japan or wherever you invest from? And do you think that dividend distribution tax is an impediment to investing in the renewable energy sector because it's ultimately not a valuation game like the Flipkarts of the world? It's a 20-year game.
I think the broader answer to your question is, I think both as an Indian and as a foreign investor, one is very excited about the vision that is out there of trying to create a very large ability in India to fulfill our energy needs with renewable energy, right? the vision to have 100 gigawatts from solar, adding wind to it, we think is a fantastic vision. It kind of is what you're used to seeing in Silicon Valley, where say, aim for 10x, and if you get to 50%, that's also a good outcome. So even if you get to 50%, that's a good outcome, and you get to 100%, that's an even greater outcome. In that context, I also feel that what's going on in the renewable space or the energy space is actually a very comprehensive effort. It's not specifically on renewable energy. I think the efforts around fixing the grid, rehabilitating the discoms, the efforts around trying to get clean solar projects and wind projects in the country where there's less and less encumbrances as it relates to foreign investors or local investors being able to invest with confidence are all good things. Having said that, I think the process that we've undergone to win the projects has put a lot of pressure on us as investors to try and eke out returns because the auction has been successful for the government, has put a lot of pressure on us investors because we think the price is ahead of where it should be at the current point in time. So one has to be very cautious in terms of how to extract IRR or return from this market. And I think, to the earlier point, if the rupee depreciates faster than one expects, then there's a very real possibility that many of us investors are not going to get adequate returns in the solar renewable space in the country. But that notwithstanding, I think we're all going to put our best foot forward and try and execute. So anything, well, like you said, the dividend tax, and there's a bunch of other issues as it relates to being able to repatriate your money in the solar space or be able to reinvest it, anything that can be done, should be done from a policy perspective to be able to make sure that anybody investing in the space is going to get adequate return. I'm not saying excess return, but adequate return that creates the incentive for all of us to go back and keep reinvesting and actually fulfill the vision of 50 gigawatt or 100 gigawatt in the country.
My name is Vivek Dheer. I run a mobile VAS company. My question is, when we grew up and when we were in college or school, we were tested on speed, which is like write a test in a limited amount of time, or memory by, memorizing stuff. Now with computing power like you described and with Google, both these skills are kind of extinct. I mean, you really don't need to do that. So what are the skills that the next generation should develop?
I think everybody is very, very good at problem solving. You give them a bunch of constraints and people always find an innovative way to get out of that problem, solve the problem. That's probably part of the reason why Indians make phenomenal programmers. If you go to the West, you go to Silicon Valley, you'll see that, Silicon Valley companies are full of lots and lots of Indians. In fact, we have examples of Indian CEOs of major technology companies around the world because they made phenomenal programmers because they were able to solve a box problem really, really well because that's what we learned when we were kids. So I don't think speed and memory was the only thing we learned when we were kids. We learned tremendous amounts of problem solving, analytical skills, and that kind of stuff. So, and I don't think that has changed. I think that is something we still need to continue to test. The one thing where we always seem to have bit of a gap is on the creativity and innovation side. If you look at people, if you look at companies, you'll find most companies in the West, there are lots of Indians who are on the programming side and very few of them transition over the creativity and innovation side. Because you're used to solving problems in the box, you very rarely try and break down the box. So that concept of out of the box doesn't work in the box. So one of the things we have to work harder to answer your question is figuring out how do we bring the notion of more creativity, more innovation back into how we test or whatever educational system that we create.
Ritesh Agrawal, look at him for a moment. He's the guy. If you drive to the airport to the left, all you see is Oyo rooms, Oyo rooms, Oyo rooms. He's a college dropout who set up Oyo rooms and he got a Thiel fellowship which is only given to those who are college dropouts and who signed a bond not to go back to college for a certain period of time. And how old are you, Ritesh?
I'm getting older by the day, 22 now. Yeah.
22 years old. And how much money did you get in your last funding and what valuation? Because that should be public.
No, I think the valuation isn't, as far as I remember, but we raised 100 mil. Yeah.
$100 million, right? And he's turning 22 now. So first of all, tell us a little bit about what you do and if you have a question for Nikesh.
So Nikesh, I think given I have to ask you a question, one of the things that I keep thinking about and haven't ever gathered courage to ask you is.
You decided to ask that on national television.
Yeah.
Great. Well done.
I felt, anyway. So I think,
He's got journalistic immunity now.
I still feel very nervous talking to you guys, but anyway. I think in general, there's opportunities across the world, and with the kind of capital that you guys have, you can be opportunistic around investing in China, in Korea, in America, and so on and so forth. And you've seen Silicon Valley like no one else. What, other than of course your, being from India, excites you so much about spending so much time supporting us more often than you do to so many other companies that you have across other parts of the world?
It's very dangerous to have a 22-year-old who's so articulate that he can tell you to stay out of his hair on national television, right? When my boss, Mr. Son, and I sat down to think about SoftBank, we said, if you look at every company out there, every company goes through a cycle. Whatever the greatest companies in the world are, they used to be great companies. Over time, they become middle-aged, and over time, they start to tire a little bit because they haven't created the right transition to the next set of CEOs or the right succession, promoter to CEO. And some companies survive that transition, some don't. We said, well, how do we make sure that SoftBank doesn't fall into that trap? So well, the way you make sure that SoftBank doesn't fall into the trap, we actually start finding these really, really smart people who are way younger than us, who are very passionate. Instead of starting these businesses ourselves, let's give them some of our money, let them have control of their companies so we can ride the wave with them and try and stay young longer than just sort of having SoftBank end up in that same middle-aged problem and then sort of fall off the other end. So our philosophy is we want to find 5 to 7 entrepreneurs a year around the world and support them. So hopefully in 7 to 10 years, we have 50 to 70 entrepreneurs, and hopefully many of them do well, and we'll be sitting on a group of really smart stakes of 15 to 40% on many different companies. So in that context, I think 16 months ago when we looked at the world, we said China looks fairly well priced and complicated because there's a whole bunch of policy and regulatory issues that come into it. The US was going through its stage of top 75 unicorns with companies worth over $1 billion. And when you looked at India, India was set up to have a systemic correction in the positive direction with a population of over 300 million people below 25 years of age, with new leadership in government, with the sort of the smartphone boom and the boom in technology in the country. We felt that a lot of the concepts that were successful in the West or in China were going to make their way to India. So I think it's happenstance and coincidence the last 16 months that India has been in a really good space, and we've invested, out of the 10 companies we've invested in, 6 of them have been in India, but we do have other companies in other parts of the world, and I take your message. I will get out of your hair and go find other companies elsewhere to go invest in.
When comfort and safety of your family matter to you the most, switch to a Grotham thermostat for a true showering pleasure. Groha for pure joy of water.
एक अलग राह थामी है, कुछ अलग है ये पैशन. एक अलग राह थामी है अपने अंदाज से, एक अलग बात छेड़ी है अपने अंदाज से.
आपको अंदर बुला रहे हैं.
मुझसे कहिए मुझे अपनी मंजिल मिल गई है. अपने अंदाज से, अपने अंदाज से.
ज्यादा पावरफुल इंजन, नए स्टाइलिश फीचर्स और बेहतर माइलेज के साथ जियो अपने अंदाज से नया हीरो पैशन प्रो.
मैंने सोच लिया है, जब मैं बड़ा हो जाऊंगा ना, तब मैं साइकिल रिपेयर की दुकान खोलूंगा. जिस तरह आप सब पेट्रोल वेस्ट कर रहे हैं, फ्यूचर में तो पेट्रोल बचेगा ही नहीं. तब तो सब साइकिल ही चलाएंगे ना.
अगर सारा पेट्रोल खत्म करेंगे, मैं कुछ अपने बच्चों को नहीं छोड़ेंगे. प्लीज कम से कम सिग्नल पे तो इंजन ऑफ कीजिए. DCRA का एंड्रॉइड ऐप डाउनलोड करें और ईंधन बचाने के उपाय जानें. पेट्रोलियम संरक्षण अनुसंधान संघ, पेट्रोलियम एवं प्राकृतिक गैस मंत्रालय, भारत सरकार द्वारा जनहित में जारी. Fly from Mumbai and Delhi to the world via Istanbul with Europe's best airline. We fly to more countries than any other airline. Turkish Airlines. Widen your world.
Can really lose it, and if I wasn't there, I think she'd probably go mad and start crying. But I try and tell her that, we will get through this.
The only questions that matter, I think, fundamentally at the end of the day are, can we, generally as a country, as a people, build something which is going to be sustainable, which is going to last for not just 20 years, 50 years, hundreds of years. You want to build something that lasts for thousands of years.
This is a celebration of the human spirit. The spirit to explore, to innovate, to survive, to compete, to do better, to be that one in a billion. And this is our quest to find the next company that's valued at $1 billion. Our adventure, our quest begins. This is Unicorn, chasing the startup dream.
Idea presents NDTV NASCOM Unicorn, chasing the startup dream. Powered by Grant Thornton and Bruce Clay India. Unicorn Monday at 9 p.m. on NDTV Prime.
Unicorn, presented by India Share Karega, India Care Karega. What an idea. Powered by Bruce Clay, providing internet marketing services to the world since 1996. And Grant Thornton, an instinct for growth.
Gadgets, gizmos and devices, it's the best time to be alive. But the trouble with technology is that there's just too much of it. Plug into a new world of tech and turn your life into a virtual hotspot. The coolest gadgets, the hottest deals, we'll tell you where to find it, how to use it, and why we love it. We've assembled the best experts in the country to make sure what you buy is the best in its category. They've tried it so that you can buy.
Reliance Digital presents Unboxed, the ultimate tech buying guide on NDTV Prime.
Unboxed, the ultimate tech guide, presented by Reliance Digital, technology at your service.
10 videos, 6 seconds each. All of them viral. Get sharing now. Download Fixty, video in 60 on iPhone and Android. Watch, laugh, share.
Welcome back to OTC, or Off the Cuff, our new show, and we are in conversation with Nikesh Arora.
Well, I was reflecting on the discussion on new economy, old economy, startups. And I was also, I'm sitting with Dr. Bharat Agarwal, who's associated with Dainik Bhaskar, large Hindi paper, the print media. And I also witnessed Shekhar and Barkha, talk about the new venture in the online space that they are talking about. So, what's the worldwide trend as far as media is concerned? And now with the old economy and new economy discussion, I was wondering what is your expectation on how Indian market is going to shape up? It's very important for us to observe how people are consuming news. What are the channels that they are using? What are the channels that, and we see a lot of shift at a pace which just baffles us at times. So what are your views on that?
That's a very good question. So now you're asking me the prognosis on the startup that Barkha and Shekhar are starting. So in my 10 years at Google, we spent a lot of time looking at the media industry because there was a product called Google News, and we looked at how people are consuming news, how news is being created. News will take on two different forms. One is what you refer to as breaking news, and the other is opinion. And what is happening is more and more you're getting breaking news from sources you never anticipated. Usually if you look, there's algorithms now which will look at generation of information activity and actually be able to tell you if this is validated or verified or not. There's about 7 startups in Silicon Valley working on looking at social media signals, doing huge data analytics across every tweet, every Facebook post, every form of social media you can find. And you'll find that actually if you start culling the data, analyzing pictures and videos, and text, you can actually start understanding where things are breaking. So I think over time you'll find that AI is going to start determining where, how news is broken, how news figures out. So I think over time media shifts to more and more of an opinion pieces and analytical pieces, opinion, as opposed to breaking news. Breaking news is going to start getting computer generated in the next 5 to 10 years, and you'll be relying on that to tell you what happened. And then once somebody figures out what happens, then you have to apply human intelligence to see what is the consequence of what happened. And I think that's going to create a huge shift in the way the entire media industry is created, but it does require a generational shift. I'd love to understand how many 18-year-olds are actually going to start subscribing to newspapers. And you'll find the answer is very few. And if you look at the analysis of all the audiences of television around the world, the average age of television viewers is somewhere in the 25 to 45 range, depending on the country, but you can't find anybody below 25 watching television news.
It's been fascinating listening to you and all the good work that you've been doing across the world. I was just struck about one thing. If you discount the internet, what do you think has been the most disruptive technological change of the 20th century? And what do you think would be the most disruptive change in maybe the next 2 or 3 decades or the next 4 decades to come?
That's an interesting question. It's hard to discount the internet, but I think the internet is, describing it like the internet is too restrictive. I think the fact that all of us have a device with us which allows us to consume information, that allows us to communicate, that allows us to access goods and services literally at the tip of a finger is phenomenal. And I think that revolution has just begun. And I think that's irreversible. So it's no way you're going to go back to it. Now, this has way bigger impact than purely the notion of being able to conduct e-commerce or the ability to get a cab or whatever. And if you look at history is littered with examples where information was power. People who had information ran countries, people who had information were kings, people who had information were priests. They were the people who ran society. And what you're seeing is democratization of information to an extent that has never happened. People give examples of fishermen now using mobile phones when they're coming into shore. They can figure out where the price is higher and the boat goes in that direction. So small pieces of information can have huge societal impact. So I think the huge impact to society that is going to happen as a consequence of this technology has not permeated every aspect of our life. And I think we elect politicians for large terms, they go in, they represent us, and we are not able to hold them accountable. But today, the fact that everybody has social media, has the ability to communicate, you'll find these life cycles will shorten. We may be able to actually communicate with our elected representatives in a much shorter time frame. They actually may be able to truly represent our point of view. And of course, they'll have to decide when to represent our point of view and when not. But I think there's going to be a huge amount of societal impact that's going to happen as a consequence of this revolution. I think one of the things we're getting really more and more excited about, one is in the next 30 years, it is not likely but sure that computers will be smarter than humans. If you look at the trajectory of computing power, computers are going to be way smarter than humans, and we will start delegating tasks to them. And there's this huge debate, as you can see around the world, of autonomous cars. The ability of a car to brake is 20 times faster than a human being's. So if you have the right sensor technology, a car can brake 20 times faster than you and I can brake if we actually have the presence of mind to brake. So there's 2 decisions to be made. 1, did you make the decision to brake? 2, how quickly did you do it? The computer will not have to make a decision. It will have the decision. It's a binary decision. It will brake. So simple things like that. Computers are going to get much smarter. So we're going to delegate a whole bunch of our tasks to computing. The second trend, which is fascinating, is in this room, in the audience, there is enough computing power to run the grid of New Delhi. Except 99% of it is lying idle, because we all use only 1% of the computing power of our phones. If there is a way to collect that power of our phones right now, we could run the New Delhi grid with the computing power in this room. So we think a lot of these devices will start talking to each other, and when they start talking to each other, the computing power and the ability of devices is going to be magnified immensely. And I can't even fathom the consequences of that technological change.
Well, we'll take our last question quite fittingly from somebody who's made the transition from a brick and mortar ad agency business to a digital agency business. Charulata.
Well, Nikesh, just wanted to narrate in the last 6 to 8 months, I've had a few women coming and talking to me about wanting me to partner them in their entrepreneurial ventures, right? So having questioned them saying, why me? Why would you want me to come and partner you for this venture? And they've all started their entrepreneurial ventures into e-commerce and several other new ideas. They said because they weren't getting the funding until they had credentials or business background to it. So my question to you is, why don't we hear enough about women entrepreneurial ideas taking off or being supported by investors like you? Or if Ritesh was a Riteshri and came to you with the same idea, would you have backed it?
100%. 100%. If, I'd much rather back a Riteshri than Ritesh. Have you seen him? He already told me to get out of his hair.
But why are these so many women finding it very difficult to find funding?
I actually think it's a sample size problem. For every 99 men who decide to start a company, there's one woman who decides to start a company. So you have a sample size problem. Now I understand that is not the end outcome. That is not the answer. You have to overcompensate. You have to support 10 women entrepreneurs for every 5 male entrepreneurs today to actually change the balance in a reasonable period of time. But it's purely a selection problem. I've been looking in India for women entrepreneurs. I found 4 who have companies which are still very small. They're not in our investing horizon. And if there were 4 men with the same ideas, I would not invest in them because they don't fit our investing criteria. Having said that, I think there is a structural challenge and that needs to be solved, and that needs to be solved on a collective basis in the country. And I think, but there are some examples of women venture capitalists who've done really well. There are some examples of women entrepreneurs who are actually starting companies.
Any that you funded? Any that you funded and any that you've supported?
No, but there's, if you look at India, in the top 50 investable internet companies of size, which we've analyzed, there is not a single one that is run or started by a woman.
Now that you say that,
if there was one, we would definitely look at it and fund it on its merit.
Among the first investors to pick Snapdeal was a woman.
That's right.
I was speaking with Ratan Tata. I know that investing is young people's business and investees tend to be young people. But I asked him, why are you investing in so many startups? And he had stars in his eyes. He said, it's so wonderful dealing with these young people. They are so energetic. They are so informal. And he just seemed to be thrilled with the whole idea. And he said, I spend time with them. I come back so refreshed. So tell me, is there a high in investing?
Sort of like investing is, the chase is a lot of fun because you find all these wonderful companies, you talk to them and say, okay, I found this company, I want to invest in it. There is 100% situation of buyer's remorse. Once you invest in a company, you go back and say, oh shit, what did I do? Is this thing going to work? Did I make the right decision or did I not make the right decision? Because nothing changed the next day, right? It's still the same company. They're burning a lot of money. They don't have a fully functional business model. Half their team is not ready. There's some 22-year-old who didn't go to college who's running the company saying, oh my God, is this thing going to work or not? So there's definitely buyer's remorse. But then as you get into the company, as you spend more time, and hopefully if you made the right decision, there's a tremendous high in being able to influence, in being able to guide, in being able to work with young people because they have an extremely untainted view of life. They have an extremely reformist view of life. And I think there is the positivity of Silicon Valley where people have got role models like, Mark Zuckerberg who started Facebook, Elon Musk doing Tesla, Steve Jobs, Larry Page, a lot of these role models, or Ratan Tata, Sunil Mittal, Pavan, whoever, in those models where people say, I want to be them. And when they want to be them, they want to change the world. And that is just refreshing and stimulating and extremely infectious.
And it is very interesting, I know, because Nikesh, you've achieved something unique. In this totally non-entrepreneurial city, Delhi, where people know the art of strategic entry and exit. What I call as a Saurav Ganguly entry, in and out, don't bother the scorer. Apologies to Saurav Ganguly, wasn't always like that. We've had our audience stay on with us, which means even in Delhi, there is interest in entrepreneurship.
And that's probably because you've got cameras on them, so you will be able to go back and see who left.
So thank you very much. Keep coming back to Delhi. And it's wonderful to have you as our first guest, and thank you very much for watching our inaugural edition of OTC, or Off the Cuff. Come back to us next month. We'll be back with another brilliant guest.
Salt to it, man. And can I get some fries with that? And why only 3? There should have been a 4th idiot, na? And I wish he wasn't this small, man. It's like 16 kbps, probably is buffering. And it should have had fronts, na? And 2 inches shorter. This guy should totally have a sunroof, man. And can someone please do something about that smile? And with 4G and 3GB DDR3 RAM and FHD screen and a marathon battery and much more. Micromax Canvas 5, a phone for the end generation. And it should have a purple dome and Wi-Fi. Feel the truth.
This is the first time we've come to participate in NDTV, this design show, and in fact for British Paints to be able to engage with the stakeholders who share a common interest is absolutely refreshing. You guys are way ahead.
Wahi hotel, wahi room. Leaking, 2 different prices. Why pay more? Find your ideal hotel on Trivago. Because Trivago compares more than 150 websites. You can be sure to find your ideal hotel for the best price. Hotel? Trivago.
How can I bat like Sachin Tendulkar?
How to get internet on flights.
How to click a perfect selfie. Smile.
How to pick up chicks?
How to treat my dragon.
How to clean India.
How do you get more followers on Instagram?
We'll tell you the ultimate secrets, just the small tricks and tweaks on How To, Tuesday at 8 p.m. on NDTV Prime.
How To, presented by Reliance Digital, technology at your service.
I feel it's time that you and I get involved and find solution to this problem. So send us your suggestion for our hashtag Farmers for Future movement. It's time we cultivate hope.
Brought to you by Renewable Foundation.
From judgments that made history
And changed India.
to the men and women behind them.
Meet some of India's leading lawyers and get a chance to go inside top law firms.
Coming up, our special series, Law, Legality and Luminaries, at 6:30 p.m. only on NDTV Prime.
There are 2 sides to every story. And just because everyone believes something doesn't mean it's true. The age of information is dead. This is the age of reason, where cold logic gives the edge to hard facts, and half-truths are revealed as the biggest lies. Get ready to disbelieve. The Contrarian, Wednesday at 8 p.m. on NDTV Prime.
Presented by Reliance Digital, technology at your service.
जब वो दिल्ली का जिक्र करते हैं
बार बार उन्हें नाहक बातों का जिक्र करते हैं, हर बार। शायद आदत सी हो गई है उन्हें दोहराने की, शायद। जब वो दिल्ली का जिक्र करते हैं, जाने क्या देखते हैं वो, जाने क्या उनको दिखाई देता है। जब वो दिल्ली का जिक्र करते हैं, काश वो एक जरा और कहते, एक जरा और देखते। चलो देखें वो बातें जो हमारे दिल को कुछ गुदगुदाती हैं, वो बातें जो हमारी रूह को छू जाती हैं। बारीकी से देखें, अब दिल्ली को दिल्ली वालों की नजर से देखें।